So this is what Gellner is talking about, changes in production, cognition, and coercion. Gellner's book, by the way, is called Plow, Sword, and Book, Structure of Human History. So it's a interesting book that you may want to read if you are interested in that. So we looked at this, and we will continue with the discussion on how human history and revolutions have happened along the way, from hunter-gatherers to agraria to industria, and now we are thinking about sustainia. Other social scientists focus on changes in what Gellner refers to as cognition, suggesting a range of significant changes since the mid-20th century. In addition to various fundamental changes in ontological and epistemological assumptions, many scholars advance ideas concerning the interconnectedness, complexity, and fluid character of society and the world. We are supposed to be a species that not only evolves genetically in a vertical sense of what we inherit, but also culturally, because we learn a lot of things from being in a certain cultural context, and those characters get passed on as well during procreation. And we also learn horizontally from friends, obliquely from teachers and even people who haven't met. For example, I have never met Steve Jobs. He died, but I can read about him and try to emulate him, and so on. So the interconnectedness and fluid character can get very complicated. So knowledge is constructed at an exponentially increasing pace at the same time as scientists seem increasingly explicit about the limits of our knowledge. The internet makes disseminating information more immediate, far-reaching, and open to various actors and source of criticism more difficult. So you can post something, everybody will be screaming something positive or negative, and after some time the topic of the original posting may be lost, and people will be debating themselves or fighting each other on something entirely different. So while science is increasingly able to describe the challenges of the Anthropocene, its role in legitimizing the institutions of industrial society, as Gellner 1989 suggests, is increasingly undermined by growing resistance to scientific knowledge. So this is a constant complaint, that people are becoming resistant to scientific knowledge, that this is a post-expert era where somebody who doesn't know anything about any topic can get on social media and start posting, and soon can be accepted as an expert with a large following. Right? These changes in cognition may have diverging effects on potential and direction of a new great revolution. The increasing extensity, intensity, and velocity of communication enhance society's potential for mobilizing and coordinating social actions towards sustainability. So it can be negative, where mob mentality can go in a very negative direction, or it can be positive and move towards sustainability. And yet, the sheer complexity and ambiguity in both problem descriptions and policy advice undermine decisions and actions and effectively preserve status quo. So this is kind of a trap we are in, that status quo may become just enforced because of all these multiple combinations of cognition, coercion, and production. Finally, many social scientists study different aspects of coercion, such as deviance and crime, policing, law, military, and power. Some of these investigations suggest notable changes since the mid-20th century. For instance, Conrad and Schneider show how society's perception of deviance changes from viewing it as a badness to seeing it as a sickness. And Bailey and Shering's analysis of social changes behind the restructuring of policing in developed countries. Also, there are more quantitative changes in coercion, such as mounting incarceration rates and the growing strength of law enforcement agencies. The state has allowed increased individual freedom in certain matters in some parts of the world. Nonetheless, the period since the mid-20th century entails essentially a continuation of the increasing coercive capacity of the state that has resulted in an unprecedented ability to penetrate society. Big Brother ideas, Orwell talked about it 1984, so they are now somewhat of a reality, especially with CCTVs everywhere, face recognition, and what is supposed to be secure and make us safer is actually now incredible invasion of privacy as well, and it's unclear who controls all the data and what happens with it, and obviously it's open to all kinds of misuse and manipulation, not so much through the sovereign power to control and punish or pastoral power to protect and nurture. This unprecedented ability to penetrate society has the state exercise itself, but through the disciplinary power we exercise over ourselves to fit into society. So is all this communication, social media and so on, are they making us more vulnerable to trying to fit in? Because if you stand out, then you may end up being popular for the wrong reason. So I'm again skipping some text, so you have to be careful. This steadily increasing capacity of coercion might be fundamental for the transformation towards sustainia, as states are still the main actors regulating action and organizations in all spheres of society. They are the signatories of vital agreements such as the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Paris Agreement regarding climate change, but rely on the compliance of the market, civil society, and the public for these instruments to have any effect. Although politics and power play peripheral roles in Gellner's 1989 account, which has been pointed out as a weakness, the coercive capacity of the state may be fundamental to steer the transformation towards sustainia. So you have to read and understand where this is all getting, because it's a lot of words and jargon like coercion, which can be interpreted in many ways, and sustainia itself needs an interpretation. So not with a sword at the throat as in agraria, but with legislation, taxes, rewards, encouragements, and cultivation of norms and values. So there are some strategic, analytic, and normative issues here. Legislation is one of maybe democracy or dictatorship or whatever. Taxes are also something people don't like, but people pay for common resources and common goods. And rewards and encouragements for buying solar cells, EVs, or buying more efficient things and so on. And cultivation of norms and values is something much more, complicated as to how you bring about or how you incentivize change of norms and values. Although it is vital to investigate changes in production, cognition, and coercion separately, analyzing them together may be necessary to hint at the potential and direction of a new great revolution. We must diligently study what is going on in society and formulate bold syntheses of what our recent changes in the central features of social life may mean for our future. So I will come back and read the conclusion in a separate podcast, just to keep it separate, so that I can add some commentary of my own. So we'll wrap it up with the conclusion. As I said, this is a relatively short chapter and a bit philosophical in the sense of this transition from hunter-gatherers to agraria to industria to sustainia, and how human structure of human history, in the words of Gellner, which is largely influencing this author's take on the transition from industria to sustainia. So we need to more of Gellner if we want to get deeper into this, but I'm not going in that direction, so you can do that on your own. Okay, so let's see you in the next podcast and conclude this chapter on transitioning from industria to sustainia. Okay.